Hello and welcome back to Inherited Dawn, a One Piece podcast.
We are your hosts, and today we are diving into Chapter 43, Enter Sanji.
And what an entrance it is. We are finally at the floating restaurant, the Baratie, and we meet a man who kicks so hard he leaves an impression, not just on his opponent's face, but on the entire story.
He redefines what it means to be a chef at sea. It's not just about food, it's about survival, and it's about respect. And if you violate those principles, you will be dealt with.
Absolutely. We break down every single chapter, every single week, tracking the journey of the future Pirate King. If you don't want to miss the moment we finally meet the greatest cook on the seas, make sure you're following our signal wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's set the scene. The crew is getting close. They see this giant fish-shaped ship on the horizon, the Baratie. Oda's designs for ships and locations continue to be so wonderfully imaginative. It's not just a restaurant on a boat, it's a restaurant shaped like a giant fish.
It's got style. You see that thing and you know you're in for an experience. It screams East Blue landmark. And right away we get a reminder of the world they live in. A marine ship pulls up commanded by a lieutenant named Iron Fist Fullbody. What a name.
It's a name that implies a history of violence and strength. But as we'll soon see, it feels more like a title he gave himself to sound impressive.
Oh, for sure. This guy just oozes that smarmy, self-important marine vibe. He's not like Axe-Hand Morgan, who was a genuine tyrant ruling through fear. Fullbody is the kind of guy who uses his position for perks. He's got a date with him, and he's trying so hard, so painfully hard, to look cool.
He represents a different kind of corruption within the Marines. Not the grand, megalomaniacal kind, but the petty, everyday abuse of power. The kind where a uniform gets you a better table, lets you intimidate civilians, and makes you feel important. It's a much more common and, in some ways, more insidious type of villainy.
He's the worst kind of boss to have. You just know it. The kind that takes credit for your work and throws you under the bus. You can feel it from the first panel he's in.
And who should be floating nearby but Johnny and Yosaku, still reeling from their encounter with Mihawk. They try to hide, but Fullbody spots them immediately. It's a small world in the East Blue.
He knows exactly who they are, calls them out, insults them for being small-time bounty hunters, and you can just feel the condescension dripping off him. Coming from a guy who's about to abuse his power to impress a date, that's rich.
It's a classic power play. By belittling them, he elevates himself in front of his date. He's performing authority. Johnny and Yosaku, bless their hearts, try to stand up for themselves and get completely flattened off screen.
We don't even see the fight, which is the biggest insult of all. Oda makes a deliberate choice here. He's telling us that from Fullbody's perspective and from a power scaling perspective, this fight wasn't even worth drawing. It's like swatting a fly.
That's how insignificant he considers them. It's a power move. He wants to show his date and everyone else that he's a big deal. He's Iron Fist Fullbody, a man who can dispense justice casually without even breaking a sweat.
And Luffy from the deck of the Mary, with no context other than seeing them lose, just yells that they suck. No sympathy, just pure, uncut honesty. It's such a Luffy thing to say.
It is such a Luffy thing to say. He's not being cruel in his mind. He's just stating an observable fact. As you said, his logic is, you're bounty hunters, your job is to win fights, and you just lost. There's no malice, just a complete lack of a filter.
It's his weird way of being encouraging, I think. Like, hey, I see you, you lost, get stronger. He doesn't respect weakness, he respects effort, and they just got washed.
He gives them a warning, saying he's off duty, but the damage is done. He's established himself as an antagonist. But as Johnny falls, his case of wanted poster spills open.
This is a key little detail, a small moment that changes everything. Nami, ever the opportunist, goes to pick them up. You can see the little money sign gleam in her eye. She's thinking about bounties, about cash, standard Nami operating procedure.
But she freezes. She sees one poster in particular and her whole demeanor changes. The fun-loving, greedy navigator is gone, and she just looks haunted.
The art here is incredible. Oda zooms in on her face, and it's just pure shock. Her eyes are wide, she's breaking into a cold sweat. The bubbly personality just evaporates.
It's a stark shift. We've seen her get serious about money, we've seen her get angry, but we have never seen her look this terrified. This is different. This is fear. Or maybe hatred. It's deeply personal. And Oda, the master that he is, doesn't show us the face on the poster.
He just leaves it hanging there. That's masterclass storytelling. You know it's going to be massively important, but right now, it's just a seed of dread. We're left asking the same question Luffy and Usopp are. What's wrong, Nami? What could possibly shake Nami, who has faced down Buggy the Clown and Captain Kuro to her very core?
It retroactively explains so much about her character, too. Her hatred of pirates, her obsession with money. We always assumed it was just part of her personality, but this panel suggests it's all rooted in a specific traumatic event. A single face on a piece of paper is the key to her entire past.
It's a promise from Oda to the reader. You'll find out, he's saying, but not yet. It just amps up the tension for her personal arc to a whole new level.
Before we can dwell on it, Fullbody gets bored. His posturing over Johnny and Yosaku didn't impress his date, so he needs a bigger display. He decides, despite being off-duty, to sink their ship. He calls them pirates and orders his men to fire a cannon.
Just pure arrogance. He has no proof they're pirates. He just sees a Jolly Roger and decides to destroy their ship. It's an act of casual, disproportionate violence.
And here we go. Luffy does what Luffy does best. He sees a giant metal ball flying at his ship, and his solution is simple, direct, and causes a million other problems.
His thought process is so linear. Threat, cannonball. Ship, fragile. Me, rubber. The solution becomes obvious to him in a split second.
He just inhales Gomu Gomu no Fusen and turns himself into a giant balloon. It's his go-to defensive move, and it's worked every time so far. Buggy's buggy ball, Don Krieg's weapons. It's a reliable technique.
A perfect shield. The cannonball bounces right off of him. Problem solved. The Mary is safe. His friends are safe. Except for the part where he has absolutely no aim. He has no control over the trajectory of the ricochet. He sends the cannonball flying in a completely new direction, and it smashes directly into the roof of the Baratie.
A magnificent failure. He saved his own ship by critically damaging someone else's. The immediate problem is gone, but a much, much more expensive one has just been created. It's the perfect encapsulation of Luffy as a force of nature. He's like a hurricane. He might solve your drought, but he's also gonna knock your house down.
That is the essence of Monkey D. Luffy. He doesn't think 2 steps ahead. He thinks, cannonball, bad, and deals with it. The consequences are a problem for future Luffy. And he does this constantly. It's how he meets Kobe, it's how he meets Zoro, and now it's how he's going to meet his cook. His recklessness is his greatest weakness, and somehow his greatest strength. It's what drives his adventure forward.
And future Luffy's problems begin immediately. The scene shifts inside the Baratie, where Fullbody is trying to recover his disastrous date.
It is going so badly. He's trying to play it cool after the cannonball hit their roof, making some lame joke to his date about how everyone's looking at her, not him. The secondhand embarrassment is real. I was cringing so hard reading this. You just want to tell the guy, dude, stop, just stop talking.
And then he tries to show off his worldliness and sophistication by identifying the wine. This is another classic move of the insecure. He swirls it, he sniffs it, he makes a big, confident pronouncement about the vintage and region. And he is completely, utterly wrong.
He's trying to be James Bond, and he's coming off as Johnny English. And the waiter who corrects him is just perfect. He's got this curly eyebrow, a cigarette hanging from his mouth, and he's in a full suit. He just walks up to the table with this air of absolute confidence. He looks like he owns the place, even though he's just serving wine.
It's the composure that's so striking. In this situation, the customer, especially a Marine lieutenant, holds the social power, but Sanji immediately flips that dynamic. He doesn't apologize or get defensive. He simply presents a fact, calmly and without judgment, and in doing so, he seizes complete control of the conversation.
And this is our introduction to Sanji. And it's not as a fighter or a cook, but as a waiter who is effortlessly, overwhelmingly cooler than the pompous Marine lieutenant. He informs Fullbody that the fancy wine he ordered isn't what he's drinking. He does it so calmly, so politely, and it just utterly deflates Fullbody's ego.
The dialogue is perfect. He doesn't just say, "You're wrong." It feels like he phrases it so professionally. Something like, "I'm afraid that's not quite right, sir." It's professional, but it's devastating.
He doesn't just correct him. He reveals he's the sous chef, the number 2 cook in the entire restaurant. He's not just some random server. He knows exactly what he's talking about because food and drink are his entire world. The level of casual ownage is off the charts. He didn't just win the argument. He revealed that Fullbody wasn't even qualified to participate in it.
Fullbody is left sputtering, trying to claim he was just testing him. His date is clearly not impressed. It's a social execution performed with surgical precision. Sanji didn't raise his voice or insult him, he just used the truth as a weapon.
Meanwhile, on the roof, Luffy has been apprehended. The other chefs have got him, and they drag him in front of the head chef, this huge guy with a braided mustache, a giant chef's hat, and a peg leg. This is Zeph.
And Zeph is all business. He radiates authority. Where Fullbody performs it, Zeph embodies it. He doesn't need to shout to be intimidating. Luffy blew a hole in his restaurant. He doesn't care about excuses about cannonballs or marines. He cares about repayment.
Luffy, in his own simple way, understands this. He offers his treasure, his most prized possession, which is just his hat, and Zeph is not having it. He smacks it right off his head. You can see the instant rage in Luffy's eyes.
It's the first time we've seen someone disrespect the hat like that besides Buggy. But unlike Buggy, Zeph doesn't seem to be doing it out of malice. It's a practical dismissal. Your sentimentality has no monetary value here. He's a pragmatist.
And he lays down the law. The price for the damages and the meal he's about to eat? 1 full year of chore boy work on the Baratie.
A whole year. That's a serious debt. In a series where arcs can take place over a few days, a year feels like an eternity. It grounds the consequence of Luffy's recklessness in a very real, tangible way. His journey to become Pirate King is officially on hold.
But think about it. This is how Oda gets our crew a cook. It has to be. Luffy didn't just stumble upon a restaurant. He crashed into the life of his future crewmate and got stuck there. It's fate, orchestrated by a cannonball.
It's a very common trope in old adventure stories and myths. The hero incurs a debt, often through a foolish mistake, and must work it off. This servitude leads to them meeting a key ally or learning a vital skill. It feels very classic. And Zeph's design, the peg leg, he looks like a pirate himself.
He's gotta be Red Leg Zeph, right? I feel like he has to be a famous pirate captain. The other cooks are all tough-looking guys, too. They're not just chefs. They look like a gang of thugs. This isn't just a restaurant. This place has a history. You can feel it in the walls. Zeph's presence suggests a past filled with battles. How does a chef lose a leg?
And why would a former pirate captain be running a restaurant in the East Blue? It's another mystery, just like Nami's wanted poster. Oda is layering the intrigue of this arc beautifully.
Back at the table from hell, Fullbody decides he needs to get his dignity back. He's been embarrassed, he's been corrected, and his date is laughing at him, so he chooses the worst possible way to do it.
He tries to frame Sanji. He takes a fly, drops it in his own soup, and then makes a huge scene about it, demanding to know what's going on. It is the most pathetic, cowardly move. He can't win with intellect, so he resorts to a cheap, undeserving trick.
He's trying to get Sanji fired, to ruin his reputation. It's a desperate, ugly attempt to regain control.
And Sanji's reaction is what defines him for the rest of the series. He doesn't get flustered, he doesn't get defensive, he doesn't even get angry at the accusation.
He leans in, flirts with Fullbody's date, and completely ignores the angry Marine. He compliments her beauty, asks her name. He's more interested in her than in this ridiculous complaint. The power move is incredible.
He's communicating to Fullbody, you are not even the most important person at your own table right now. And when Fullbody finally gets his attention, Sanji just looks at the soup and says he's not an insect expert. He doesn't dignify the lie with a defense. He just sidesteps it with pure charm and wit. He refuses to play Fullbody's game.
Fullbody's date starts laughing in his face. He has been defeated again. Socially, intellectually, and now his pathetic revenge plot has backfired. He has been systematically dismantled by a sous chef, so he does the only thing a guy like him can do. He resorts to violence.
He smashes the table. He's screaming. His date is yelling at him to stop. He's lost complete control. He's been exposed as a fraud, and all that's left is the Iron Fist.
And this is the moment. Sanji just looks at the wasted food on the floor. That's what gets him. Not the insult to his cooking, not the broken table, not the threat of violence. It's the perfectly good soup now spilled and ruined. His entire demeanor changes. The charming, cool waiter is gone, and something much more dangerous takes his place.
Fullbody throws a punch, and the other chefs all cry out for Sanji not to fight back. You can hear them yelling for someone to hold him back, for him not to use his hands. This tells us everything. Sanji has a reputation. He's a fighter, and they know how dangerous he is. This isn't the first time this has happened.
But it's too late. The next thing we see is Fullbody on the ground, bloody and beaten, a single panel of pure destruction. Sanji didn't even use his hands. You can see the perfect footprint on his face. He kicked him into oblivion. He laid him out with one kick.
And he delivers the core philosophy of this entire arc. He tells Fullbody that wasting food is one thing, but picking a fight with a cook on the open sea? That's suicide.
That's the line. Because on a ship, the cook is everything. The cook keeps you alive. The cook is the difference between a healthy crew and a crew dying of scurvy. You don't disrespect the food, and you do not, under any circumstances, mess with the person who makes it. Sanji isn't just defending his own honor. He's defending the sacred role of a chef at sea.
It's a law of survival out here. Fullbody, with his land-based authority and arrogance, doesn't understand that. The Baratie operates under the laws of the sea, not the laws of the world government. Sanji just taught him a very painful lesson about the rules of the blue.
This is how you introduce a character. Style, principle, and a devastatingly powerful kick. He's a gentleman who can fight, a cook who respects his craft above all else, and he has a clear, defined moral code that revolves around food. He's perfect. He has to join the crew.
And Luffy is now stuck here for a year, working side by side with him. The stage is perfectly set for Luffy to see all of this firsthand and decide that this is the man he needs as his cook.
I also just want to mention Oda's author comment for the week. He was freaking out because the voice actor for Katsuo in Saze-san changed. It's just so funny to me that this man is crafting this epic saga, this intricate world with deep themes, and he's also just a giant anime fan getting upset about casting changes in a slice of life show.
It's a good reminder of the person behind the pages. He's a fan, just like us. His love for the medium is what makes One Piece so special. He's not just writing a story, he's participating in a culture that he clearly adores.
Exactly. What an incredible chapter. The calm before the storm and the introduction of a character who is just pure class. He's suave, he's deadly, and he can cook. What more could you want?
It's the beginning of a major arc, and you can already feel the pieces moving. The Baratie itself feels like a character, full of dangerous people and unspoken histories. Nami has a ticking time bomb in her past, and now a humiliated Marine lieutenant is likely nursing a grudge.
For sure. All right, before we get into what we think is coming next, let us know what you thought of Sanji's introduction. Was it the coolest entrance for a Straw Hat yet? Zoro's was legendary, tied to a post. Nami's was clever. Usopp's was, well, it was Usopp. But this one feels different. This was pure style. Drop your take in the comments below.
I'm very interested to see the consensus on that. Okay, predictions for Chapter 44. What do you have, Franky?
All right, prediction 1, Zeph is going to see Luffy's appetite in action and immediately realize the 1 year of work deal is a massive loss for the Baratie. Luffy is going to eat more in a week than he could possibly work off in a year. The cost of feeding him will bankrupt the restaurant. This will lead to a new deal, probably some kind of impossible challenge that Luffy has to complete to earn his freedom. Defeat this notorious pirate for me, or something along those lines.
That feels very plausible. Luffy's appetite is a force of nature and a narrative tool. My first prediction centers on Nami. We are going to see the wanted poster. We left on that cliffhanger, and Oda rarely lets those threads dangle for too long when a new arc is beginning. I believe she'll be looking at it alone on the Going Merry, and we'll finally see the face of the man she despises. I think it will be Arlong. This will be the first time his name or face is explicitly put into the story, formally kicking off her personal conflict and setting the stage for the next major saga.
Ooh, I like that. Getting right to it. Okay, for my second prediction, I'm thinking about Sanji and Zeph. The way Zeph runs the kitchen and the way the other cooks respect but also fear Sanji's temper, there's a deep history there. I predict we'll see a flashback or at least a tense conversation that reveals Zeph is more than just his boss. He's a mentor, maybe even a father figure, and their relationship is the core of why Sanji stays at this restaurant. We'll learn that Zeph taught Sanji not only how to cook, but also how to fight with his legs.
That connects to my second prediction. Fullbody is a Marine lieutenant. He just got publicly humiliated and physically assaulted in front of his date and his own subordinates. His pride is everything. He is not going to let this go. I predict he will return to the nearest Marine base, rally a squad of soldiers, maybe even a superior officer, and come back to the Baratie to arrest Sanji for assaulting an officer. This will escalate the situation from a personal dispute to a full-blown conflict with the world government, forcing Luffy to defend his new friend and the restaurant.
Bro, that would be intense. A Marine siege on a restaurant. Okay, my final prediction. Zoro, Usopp, and the others on the Merry are going to get restless. They'll see Luffy mopping floors and washing dishes, and they won't understand the context of the debt. They'll decide he's been captured or enslaved. Zoro, never one for patience or complex explanations, will lead a rescue mission that involves him trying to cut the Baratie in half, causing even more chaos and putting the crew even deeper in debt to Zeph.
And my final prediction is about the other chefs. They begged Sanji not to fight. They know his history. They are the Greek chorus of this setting. I think one of them will pull Luffy aside while he's working and explain just who Sanji is. We'll get some exposition about Sanji's past, why a cook of his caliber is on a floating restaurant in the East Blue, and perhaps a hint about a dream he has, a dream related to some kind of mythical sea that's keeping him here. They will serve as the gateway to understanding his character before he opens up himself.